This time, you really gave us a lot of material to think about. It's a comprehensive and thought-provoking overview.
Yes, it seems that way, doesn't it?
Exactly. We have all these elements: Industry 4.0, hybrid work, sustainability, soft skills. Everything seems to be connected.
It's a lot, it's true. But what I find really fascinating is how all these elements are intertwined.
Exactly. To approach this exploration in depth, I think it makes sense to start with the learning objectives.
Absolutely. And the most interesting thing is that these are skills that are constantly evolving. Teachers must therefore be agile and ready for change. All of these aspects influence each other.
Exactly.
When you look at them as a whole, a very interesting picture really emerges.
Okay, so I would say that to start, we need to reflect on what we want students to achieve, what results and skills they need to develop.
Yes, absolutely. So Industry 5 can be thought of as being based on the fourth industrial revolution. You know, all that convergence of artificial intelligence, robotics, Internet of Things, all of this. But Industry 5 takes a slightly different perspective, I suppose you could say.
Okay, in what way?
Well, instead of just focusing on more and more automation, Industry 5 actually involves a much closer collaboration between human beings and all these advanced technologies.
Okay, so less about robots taking over and more about working alongside them.
Exactly. It's about finding that synergy, right? Think less about robots that completely replace people and more about human beings and intelligent machines that work together in these truly connected digital and physical spaces.
I understand. So it's not just about the technology itself, but about how we use it.
Think, for example, of the manufacturing sector. You might have a skilled worker, right? But they're driving a robot that can perform tasks with superhuman precision.
Okay, this is a very clear example. So it's a more human-centered approach to how we use all of this technology.
Exactly.
And so, how does it lead us to education?
Well, when the world of work changes so significantly, it makes sense that education should change hand in hand.
Sure, to keep up.
So 5.0 education is this concept that essentially describes how education must evolve to prepare people for this world of Industry 5 and for all the wider social changes that come with it.
That makes sense. So it's about making sure that people have the right skills, the right knowledge to thrive in this new world.
Yes, and not only the skills and knowledge, but also the right mentality. Because this is a world that will constantly change. So adaptability, resilience, these kinds of things become just as important as being able to program or know how to operate a specific piece of machinery.
So, Education 5.0 is much more than just technical training, right?
It's about preparing them to become flexible citizens, able to adapt and ready to learn throughout their lives.
Okay, so what are the big learning objectives that emerge from all of this?
The students. So the main objective is really to put them at the center of the educational process, not only for today's jobs, but also for those that don't exist yet.
It is as if preparing for the world of work had become a responsibility shared by society as a whole.
Exactly. And all this connects perfectly with the topics we talked about: Industry 5.0, sustainability, resilience, and much more.
It's a really ambitious agenda. Where can we start?
One of the key ideas, which often occurs in materials, is the centrality of soft skills. It is recognized that technology, however important, alone is not enough. People need to know how to use it effectively.
And that means developing skills such as critical thinking, creativity, collaboration, and communication.
These skills are not tied to a specific profession, but are useful in any work context. That's right. And that's why today so much is invested in the development of soft skills.
So it's about using technology in a way that actually makes learning more human, more personalized, more engaging.
Exactly. It's about finding that balance point where technology supports and enhances those human elements of education that are so essential. For example, think of it this way: technology can help us understand each student's unique strengths, needs, interests.
Right, and that brings us to the idea of personalized learning. It seems like this is a really important part of the vision for education.
Absolutely. It's one of the key areas where technology has the potential to truly transform education.
So, how does it actually look in practice? How does technology help personalized learning?
Well, one of the really important things here is the potential of what we call ICT information and communication technologies, in particular to analyze and understand each student's unique learning path in a much more detailed way.
Okay, we're talking about educational software, online learning platforms, all that kind of thing.
Exactly. And what's really interesting is the way in which these technologies can be used to analyze a wide range of information about a student. Then analyze their past academic performance, their background, analyze how they interact with teaching materials, even their social connections within the learning environment. All of this data can be used to build a really rich and detailed picture of each student.
It is therefore a matter of using the data to really know each student, not only in terms of grades, but also who they are as a student.
That's right. And then, once you have a much deeper understanding, you can start using artificial intelligence and machine learning to create learning paths that are truly tailored to the individual.
So, at this point, everything gets really interesting, right? So, we're talking about an artificial intelligence that designs personalized lesson plans for each student.
It's not that simple, but yeah, that's the general idea. Artificial intelligence can be used to regulate how information is presented, the types of activities a student engages in, the pace at which they move through the material, all based on how they are doing in real time, makes learning flexible and constantly adapting it to the student's needs.
It seems incredibly efficient. I mean, if it worked, it would be great. But what kind of student data are we talking about here? Is it just about grades and test results? Or is it more than that?
It certainly includes things like performance and assessments because it's a really key indicator for evaluating the effectiveness of personalized learning and for informing future education. But it goes far beyond that. I mean, the 5.0 training also recognizes that the world of work is changing so rapidly and that more and more work is taking place online, remotely, digitally. So it also highlights the need for skills in areas such as cloud data management. But do it securely, managing sensitive information ethically, and truly understanding how to protect yourself and systems from cyber threats.
All right, wait. Cybersecurity skills as part of personalized learning, that's a connection I wouldn't necessarily have established.
Students must understand how to navigate that digital world safely and responsibly.
This is true. I mean, all of us are spending more and more time online, so those skills are becoming pretty fundamental.
Absolutely. And what's even more interesting is that artificial intelligence itself is becoming a cybersecurity tool. Artificial intelligence can be used to identify potential weaknesses in systems, to analyze user behavior, and to look for unusual activity that could signal a threat. It is therefore a sort of multi-level approach in which technology personalizes learning and helps to safeguard it.
Okay, so technology is both the enabler and the protector of this new learning landscape. Now, all this seems to involve a lot of effort on educators. I mean, are they even equipped to handle all of this? How are they expected to fit in?
This is a really great question. I mean, there's no question that this requires a pretty significant change in the way educators approach their work.
One thing that is becoming really crucial is strategic planning in education. Educators need to be very clear about what their students need to achieve.
You have to ask yourself, what are the learning objectives? What skills do students need to develop? And then it is necessary to identify the best technological resources, which perhaps means collaborating with those who develop those technologies.
So it seems like teachers are becoming more like orchestrators of learning experiences.
Great observation. They are curating personalized learning paths. And that's why professional training is so important. They must learn to use technology effectively and share their strategies with their colleagues.
So don't just give them a new laptop and say, good luck.
That's right. We need continuous training, mentoring, and a culture where we learn and innovate together.
We've talked about technology and teachers, but are the methods also changing? Are we moving away from face-to-face lessons?
Yes, a profound change is taking place in pedagogy. Some call it pedagogy with a capital P. Creativity, flexibility are valued, and the student is pushed to think in an innovative way. It's a shift from a teacher-centered approach to one where the student is truly at the center.
What form does all this take in the classroom?
For example, project-based learning, we work on real problems, often in groups.
So it's not just about memorizing.
Exactly. Knowledge is applied, problems are solved, critical thinking is developed. Or competency-based learning, where we evaluate if a student has really mastered a skill. It doesn't matter how much time he spent in the courtroom. There are also cooperative models, where you learn by collaborating.
Interesting. How does it work?
There is the puzzle or jigsaw method. A topic is divided into parts. Each student becomes an expert on a part, and then explains it to the rest of the group.
So everyone has a specific role.
Yes, and in the meantime, they develop communication, teaching, and group work skills.
And in technical fields, such as engineering,
Problem-based learning and design thinking are increasingly being used. Real problems are being addressed in teams. This reinforces technical skills and also soft skills.
wait, before we get into those, what exactly is design thinking?
It is a method that focuses on the user's needs. A good technical solution is not enough. It must be useful, usable, desirable.
Form and function.
Exactly. Another method is challenge-based learning. Companies bring real challenges to the classroom.
So the school connects to the real world.
Yes, students gain concrete experience, and companies receive new ideas. Everyone wins.
Now let's talk about the PPP method for languages.
PPP equals presentation, practice, production. A structured and progressive approach. First, you introduce yourself to the new language, then you do guided exercises, and finally you move on to using it freely.
So it's gradual. Security is built.
Exactly. So the students feel comfortable speaking.
What about web quests? What is it about?
These are online research projects. You start with a task, and you use digital sources to find the answers.
They develop research, critical thinking, digital literacy.
Yes, and they motivate a lot, especially when learning languages.
In the end, we are moving from passive learning to active and participatory learning. Everything revolves around soft skills, but what are they really?
In the world of work, technical skills change rapidly. The transverse ones, on the other hand, last over time.
Type, communication, adaptability, teamwork.
Exactly. The sources divide them into three categories: interpersonal motivation, resilience, interpersonal communication, empathy, critical thinking, and innovation.
All of this really changes the way you learn, and this is only the beginning.
But it's about the ability to think creatively, solve problems, analyze information, reflect on your learning.
Right, these are precisely the skills that allow you to learn quickly adapt to new situations, and find innovative solutions to problems.
And finally, there's the aspect of global citizenship, which means understanding global issues, knowing how to work with people from different backgrounds, and having a sense of responsibility for the planet and society.
It seems that Education 5.0 seeks to develop the person in their entirety, not just to train them for a specific job.
Absolutely. It's about equipping people with the skills and mindset they need to succeed in all areas of life, not just careers. And it's really interesting to see that even in a field like engineering, traditionally very focused on technical skills, there is now a growing awareness of the importance of soft skills.
That's right, because engineers no longer work in isolation. They are part of teams, they communicate with customers, they solve complex problems that require creative thinking and collaboration.
Exactly. Engineering programs are understanding that graduates need to have more than just technical expertise. They must be effective communicators, solid collaborators, and creative problem solvers to truly address the complex challenges of today's world.
And this is precisely where these soft skills come into play. These are those skills that allow you to apply technical knowledge effectively, ethically, and sustainably. Another recurring theme in the materials you sent me is the importance of visualization and digital literacy. Why are they considered so fundamental in this new educational landscape?
Well, your sources highlight an interesting aspect. Today's students have grown up immersed in digital media. They are digital natives, and that has really affected the way they process information and learn.
Right, because they are used to receiving information in small doses, full of images and interactivity.
Exactly. And so traditional teaching methods, such as classroom lessons or textbooks, are not always the most effective in reaching these students.
So, how do you fit in?
A really powerful approach is visualization. Instead of presenting information only in written form, images, diagrams, infographics, videos, all kinds of visual aids are used to help students better understand and memorize.
That's right, because it's often much easier to understand something when you see it, rather than just reading it.
Exactly. This is especially true for complex or abstract concepts. Visual content helps make these ideas more concrete and accessible. There is now an entire field of study called information visualization, which deals precisely with how to present data in a visually clear and understandable way.
So it's about using visuals to help students make sense of complex data, identify patterns, and understand relationships.
Exactly. And in a world where we're constantly bombarded with information, the ability to filter and manage that content effectively is a really, really valuable skill.
Absolutely. You've also mentioned digital literacy, and it seems like it's not just about knowing how to use a computer or smartphone. Yes, digital literacy is becoming increasingly important and encompasses a wide range of skills.
Exactly. It's not just about using technology, it's also about understanding how it works and affects our lives.
So it's about being critical consumers of technology, not just passive users.
That's right. And it also means knowing how to create with technology, not just consuming it.
For example, being able to create digital content such as presentations, videos, or blogs. In fact, there is a real push toward empowering students as creators of digital content. Why is it considered so beneficial?
When students actively create their own digital content, they gain a deeper understanding of technology and how it can be used for learning. It also helps them develop key 21st century skills. It's a much more engaging way of learning than passive consumption.
With all these possibilities for digital transformation in education, there also seem to be challenges. What are the main obstacles?
This is an important question because there are definitely difficulties. The sources you shared highlight several. Some obstacles are organizational. Many educators already have heavy workloads, which leads to a natural resistance to change. For example, they might think, Why add something new when I already have too much to do? Then there are technical barriers, such as learning management systems that are difficult to use or poorly integrated with other technologies. This can be extremely frustrating for both teachers and students. There are also methodological obstacles, such as copyright issues in the use of digital assets, or the lack of pedagogical training and understanding among some educators on how to effectively use these new tools.
Exactly. So it's not just about having the technology, but about knowing how to use it well.
Precisely. Finally, there are psychological barriers, such as the lack of confidence in the use of technology on the part of some teachers. They may fear appearing incompetent in front of their students.
So there's an emotional component to all of this.
Absolutely. All of these barriers must be addressed to successfully integrate digital technologies into education. We must provide effective training and support to teachers, invest in intuitive technologies, and promote a culture of innovation, where teachers feel free to try new things, even if it means risking failure.
Exactly, because that's how learning happens, right? Trying new things and making mistakes.
Exactly. And it's important to remember that this is an evolution, not a goal. Digital transformation doesn't happen overnight. It's a continuous process of learning, adaptation, and experimentation.
It makes sense. One of the things that struck me the most in the materials we shared is that despite all this focus on technology, the importance of the human element in education is greatly emphasized. Why does it remain so fundamental?
Yes, it's an aspect that I found very interesting too. With all this amazing technology, it would be easy to think that the human element is becoming less important. But your sources strongly emphasize that human connection and the emotional aspect of learning remain absolutely fundamental. Why? Because learning isn't just about acquiring information or skills, it's also about personal growth, social development, and finding your place in the world. And these are things that technology can't teach. We need human interaction, the relationship, the guidance of a mentor to really develop these dimensions of ours.
That's right. So let's talk about awareness of one's emotions, ability to regulate them, empathy for others. All of this.
Actually, and there's a growing body of studies showing that emotional intelligence is critical to school success. It can improve focus, collaboration, and even stimulate creative thinking.
It's logical. If you're stressed or anxious, it's much harder to learn effectively.
That's right. This is why Education 5.0 recognizes that it is not enough to teach technical skills or content. We must also teach how to manage emotions, to build relationships, to collaborate effectively.
That's right, because these are the skills that will allow students to thrive in a complex and constantly evolving world. Another important theme that emerged from the materials is that of sustainable education. What exactly does it mean in this context?
Well, the need for sustainable education is increasingly urgent, given the magnitude of the environmental challenges we are facing. Your sources stress that educational innovations must take these environmental issues into account, and not only symptoms, but also root causes.
In fact, why isn't it enough to teach students what climate change is? We need to help them to think in terms of systems, to make sustainable choices, to be responsible citizens of the planet.
Exactly. Sustainable education means integrating the principles of sustainability throughout the curriculum, especially in areas such as engineering, architecture, or economics, where the decisions taken can have an enormous environmental impact.
Sure, it is a way to ensure that new generations have the tools to build a more sustainable world.